The liver responds to chemical injury, such as an overdose of alcohol, by laying down scar tissue amongst its cells. This scar tissue is called cirrhosis. Patients may appear well in early stages of this disease, but as the liver is progressively destroyed by the scarring, they begin to suffer from weight loss, nausea, vomiting, weakness, loss of sex drive, abdominal pain, bloating, and bleeding. Death results from liver failure or the internal hemorrhaging, and alcohol is the leading cause of this cirrhosis. Now, what they're talking about is this scar tissue going over these cells. It's like having a sieve. The liver oxidizes is what it does. Everything that goes through the liver, it comes through like a sieve, and the poison is separated from it and discharged. Well, if you want to see what cirrhosis is like, say you had a colander that you make spaghetti with, that you rinse off the spaghetti with. As long as you run water or liquid through the colander, the top, it'll come right out the bottom. No problem at all. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. But with cirrhosis, it begins to scar on the inside of that colander, and it begins to cover up some of them holes, so that when you pour any liquids into it, it can't get through. And obviously, the more scarring that's done, eventually the whole inside of the colander is covered, and no liquids can get out. And when no liquids can get out, you begin to bloat. And you begin to retain all of this inside of you, poison and all. And eventually, of course, you die. It's a horrible death, the death of a guy with cirrhosis of the liver. It's the only one that I really know firsthand because I've seen it. I've seen it happen, and it's a horrible thing to watch. I saw it at a veterans hospital in Chicago, Illinois. They have a ward there right next to the morgue that the patients have sort of nicknamed St. Peter's Ward. It's a ward where they usually put those who are terminally ill and who are close to dying. Now, I woke up on that ward once. And that ward is generally populated by maybe 80% guys with cirrhosis of the liver. I woke up there strapped down, convulsive DTs, and I had been strapped down for 11 days, and it was assumed by the doctor in charge that I was going to die too. So when I came to, I was just another one of them freaks, I happened to live through it. The doctor, said, well, you might go into a delayed reaction. I want you to stay on this ward for about another 10 days. But I got to know all of these guys in the latent stages of cirrhosis, and I'll describe to you exactly what it's like. It's a horrible thing. They always say that they get a jaundiced look, a yellowish look, which is true, but it's more of a grayish yellow. It's an awful looking thing. It looks like somebody has put makeup on it to make a horror film of the Walking Dead. And they walk around with we call them male pouches. You know how ex-GIs are always clowning. And actually they're not male pouches, they're a plastic sac which is attached to the urinary passages so that all liquids that come into the body go on through the system and go on into this little sac. Now the reason they do that is because they can tell whether the liver is functioning and to what degree it's functioning. Every time you take a drink during the day, any kind of a liquid, you have to write it down on a little pad. They all carry little pads and pencils around with them. 4 ounces of water, 6 ounces of orange juice, 3 ounces of coffee, whatever they drink in the liquid form has to be written down. And then it goes on through their system, and during the day, when they're urinating into this sac. At the end of the day, about 8 o'clock at night, they usually take these sacs to the nurse's station up there, and they're emptied into containers, and they measure how much liquid is in that sac. Now, of course, if your liver was functioning 100%, the same amount of liquid would be in that sac, that totals up on the little card that you drank that day, because it all would have went through that colander and come out where it was supposed to. The less that's in the sac means the more has been retained inside of the system. So the smaller amount that's in the sac sort of signals the closer you are to dying. Another sign that shows it is that the urine begins to coagulate. It begins to get very thick. A hell of a thing to compare it with, but it's the only thing that the very doctors call it. It begins to look like dark Karo syrup, pancake syrup. And the thicker, of course, that gets means that pretty soon it's not going to be able to pass on through your system and you're gonna die. Well, the thing that's morbid, and I don't really know why I used to watch these guys, maybe I was trying to teach myself a lesson. You'd be in here taking a shower at night when Gray Death would march in. They'd all come from the nurse's station with their mail pouches and their little containers, and they'd have to dump them into the urinals. And they never noticed the guys, as they were dumping out their urine, look at their own. They were always looking at the guys next to theirs. And I don't know why they do that, but I would suppose that I would probably get some kind of comfort out of that, figuring, well, he's closer to dying than me. Oh, they'd look horrible. They'd look horrible. And the only way you really knew they were dead, you know, they didn't come out with any big outcry or they didn't collapse or anything like that. I used to think they died in their sleep, but the doctors told me that they don't, that their pain and their death is so severe that they can hardly scream out. It's just like their gut is a big knot, and there's two big, heavy guys pulling on each end of it. It just shuts them all off, and they die that way. And the way we used to know they'd be dead, you know, there'd be about 80 guys in this one hospital ward. And you'd wake up in the morning, and it was the first thing everybody did in the morning on account of the ward it was. Sort of like a bunch of chickens, you know. You put your head up quick like that to look down through the beds. And if you saw a bed with the mattress half turned and all the linen off of it, you knew who was ever in that bed yesterday died during the night, was taken right next door into the morgue, and that was the end of him. And that's how people with cirrhosis die. Once you reach a certain point with cirrhosis of the liver, once you reach a certain point of this scarring, the liver will not regenerate itself. If you haven't reached that point and you do stop drinking, chances are that the liver will regenerate itself. It will take away that scar tissue, and the sieve will become usefully whole again. But if you pass that line, when it's too late, even stopping drinking isn't going to help you. There is no treatment for cirrhosis of the liver. There is no pills. There is no medication. They put you on a bland diet only because they figure that'd be the easiest thing there is to pass through it. They don't come around with these pills or shots or any kind of therapy. They just hope that by not drinking, your liver will regenerate itself and you'll live. Otherwise, you're going to die. The liver responds to chemical injury, such as an overdose of alcohol, by laying down scar tissue amongst its cells. This scar tissue is called